Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants, and welcome to episode 40 of Secret Sauce, the Restaurant Marketing Podcast. Restaurant leadership. What is restaurant leadership? Why is leadership important in your restaurant? How do you do it? And how can you be a better leader in your restaurant?
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. How did you go with the secrets of restaurant profitability? One of our most popular podcasts already. A lot of people have been downloading it and commenting. We've been getting some great feedback. I think the really interesting thing about that is that Ivan is attacking the problem of restaurant profitability from a completely different point of view. And I think that that's really important because everyone knows that restaurant profitability is such a difficult thing to do. If you're doing what everyone else is doing, then you're probably going to have very similar results, and those results aren't great. Most people aren't making money. They're actually struggling to be able to pay themselves the proper rate. So I think we need to be looking at restaurant profitability in a different way, and that podcast is an amazing way. Ivan's got some great ideas there. So if you haven't checked it out, have a quick listen to it. Today we're going to be talking about restaurant leadership. I think that this is a really fascinating subject because when we go to a restaurant, just as someone who's going to eat in a restaurant, often you can see that there are significant problems in the restaurant, and those problems are self-reinforcing. You create this negative feedback loop, which is really quite sad. A lot of those problems come down to leadership. So we're going to look at what it is. We're going to talk about how to define leadership. We're then going to start looking at some of the tools that you can use so that you can be a better leader in your restaurant. I'm really passionate about this. I think it's one of the most important things that you can do in a restaurant to be able to improve the outcomes in your restaurant. Before we get there, though, tragically, we've got a restaurant autopsy to conduct. We're going to be peeling back the components of the death of a restaurant. And this is a little bit of an interesting one. So it was a customer who was using our free online restaurant booking system. And that means that we've got a little bit more information than you normally get. Often you just see the for lease sign or for sale sign up on the window of the restaurant. You can look in, all the tables and chairs are gone, and you know the restaurant's died, but you don't really know what the problems were. With this one, we've got a little bit more information. So we've eaten there probably about 4 times, I would have thought. Quite a good little local restaurant. Not local to us. We travelled to it because we knew the owner and they were using our free online restaurant booking system, and the food was pretty good. The kids liked eating there. Now, the interesting thing about this is they've been using our free online restaurant booking system for about 2 years now. And one of the things that we do with the restaurant booking system is that we give our customers who are using it some information on how they can do better marketing. And these guys did none of that. And I find this really fascinating. So the restaurant's been sold, and they said, it was so that we could get more time with the kids, which is completely fair enough. But I think that the reason that they didn't have enough time with the kids was because of the fact that the restaurant wasn't profitable. And you knew that. We'd been there on Friday nights, and the place was only half full. If you're not filling the place on a Friday and a Saturday night, then you've got really big problems. You can still be quite unprofitable while being really busy on a Friday, Saturday night. These guys weren't busy on a Friday, Saturday night. So we know that, that profitability was a significant struggle, and they talked about that as well. The thing that I find amazing, though, is that there are a whole range of free or very low-cost marketing things that you can do in a restaurant. They'd done none of those things over the 2 years. And every time that we would go out there, the owner would come over and say, how's things? Because, obviously knew that I'm the owner of Marketing for Restaurants. And so he would come and talk to us, and he'd be looking for ideas, and we'd be discussing things. We'd do a little bit of menu engineering. We'd go through the website and we'd go through their Facebook page. And the problem was that the website was very bland. Their signature dish, I guess, would be some of their steaks. There was nothing on the website to suggest that you would want to go and eat a steak there. There was no amazing photo of a steak. They didn't describe themselves as a steakhouse, so anyone looking for a good steak is not going to find them. The search engine optimization around what it was that they do for all of their customers was very poor. It was a bland website that was probably about 4 or 5 years old. No search engine optimization, so not getting found by Google, and very little sales process on the website. So no great photos, no great compelling reason why you would want to eat there. And these are the things that created problems for them. Now, with our free online restaurant booking system, one of the things that we do is we always send reports to our customers because we believe that, online marketing is all data-driven. You know what's working and what isn't because you can see the data for it. And the thing that was really interesting I found with their numbers was that when they started out with us, they were getting about 750 visits a month, which, hey, that's actually, that's not too bad from a website point of view. Now, it can definitely better, and there are some people out there who are getting 10,000 visits a month, but, your average local restaurant is probably getting around 1,100 visits a month. They were getting 2/3 of that. Now, the scary thing is that those numbers had slipped over time. So by the time they were closing, they were getting 600, 650, less than half of what their competitors are getting. And I think that this is a really fundamental thing that you're thinking about. Everyone thinks that, their food is amazing and that they've got that really compelling environment and experience that they create with their front of house team, and the food's amazing and, the prices are very, very competitive. But they were missing out on around 600 visits per month. Now, your conversion rate on those 600 visits, it could be 1 in 10, which is 60 visits a month. The average booking is for 3.5 seats. That's 180 covers. And, they're probably a $50 restaurant. So 60 bookings, 3.5 seats per booking, and $50 a seat. That's an extra $10,000 in revenue. Now, and the owner said, I've sold it, and, he was a little bit sheepish about it. So I'm fairly confident that he didn't get a good price for it because of the fact that the numbers wouldn't have stacked up. I'm really keen to do the episode with Robbie Doyle about how to sell a restaurant. We've talked about how to buy a restaurant. That would be the kind of restaurant that you want to buy, I think, because it's got a good reputation. It just doesn't have enough regular customers. They've done no marketing whatsoever. So that email list that they've built up there, that's never been emailed out to. So those people are waiting to get some sort of information, some sort of news about what's going on in the restaurant. That's a no-brainer. These guys, just by fixing their website, could probably bring in an extra $10,000 a month. Those calculations, 60 bookings, 3.5 seats per booking, and $50, that's $10,000 a month. Food costs are 30%. You bring in $7,000 to the bottom line. That's an extra $80,000 in your pocket. Now, either that makes it sustainable, or that means that you can then work less hours because you're able to put more staff in. You're able to get the resources to do the important things like, systematize the business. Or just at the most basic level, the price that you get when you sell that business is going to be so much more because you don't need, the marketing is already running there. So the new owner doesn't have to worry about marketing. The person who did buy it got it at a discount because he needs to worry about the marketing for the place because it's not profitable. So the thing that I find most interesting about this is the fact that the owner knew all of these things. And yet over a period of 2 years, he did none of them. No emails, no Facebook marketing, no updating to the website, no putting great photos on there. None of those things happened. And I know everyone's really busy. We're all super busy. We all work really long hours. I get that. But over a 2-year period of time, you've got to be kidding me. There's the opportunity there to make those little tiny things just once a week, make 1 or 2 little changes. And that's the investment in time that's going to pay off over those 2 years. The only marketing that he did was Groupon towards the end. And this is how we knew that he was in trouble. We knew he was in trouble before he closed the doors. Now, I don't know whether he did the Groupon to try and boost the numbers to get a better sale price, or I suspect that he was trying to keep the business going. He was trying to generate the cash to be able to keep the business going. And far too often we see people who start doing Groupon and then they're out of business 3 to 6 months later. Now, we're not saying that Groupon sends them out of business. What we are saying, though, is that desperate restaurants tend to use Groupon. There are very few restaurants that have a sophisticated approach to Groupon marketing. It can be done. We've seen it done. But it is very, very, very difficult to do, and it is marketing with fire. And if you get it wrong, it will burn you, and it will burn you horrifically. And this is why we look for traffic coming from Groupon in our customers so that we can give them a call and say, let's talk about what the problems are. Let's try and come up with a better solution, because if we're going to be Grouponing, I think it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to have a sustainable business in 12 months' time. Sad times, really, really sad times. The psychology of a restaurant owner, what is it that stopped him from taking those simple steps rather than reaching for the nuclear option of going for some Groupon campaigns? I'm not sure. You see it a lot in Bar Rescue and Restaurant Impossible. You see the work that they do to try and break down those psychological barriers. And one of the things that I'm interested in is, how do you break those barriers down, A, by yourself, and B, before you're in a position where you've only got 2 days worth of cash flow left? How do you wake up one morning and think, I'm not happy with the way that the restaurant's going, I need to start making some changes, and then slowly start making those changes? I think that is a fascinating topic. I'm not sure who we're going to get to talk about it, but I'm doing a lot of research in that space because I think that there's a lot to be said for it. So let's get out of the autopsy room and get into something a lot more exciting: restaurant leadership. I'm fascinated by leadership because I think it's one of the really key differentiators in any small business, any business at all. When I started my first business in 1999, our accountant said that you should go and do an MBA. And I thought, you know what, that sounds like a really good idea. So I went off and did an MBA, and I did mine at the Mount Eliza Business School. And it was when I looked at the course curriculum, I thought, well, there's a lot of fluffy subjects in there. It wasn't a rats and stats type MBA. We did a lot of work on culture, organisational behaviour and leadership. And I wasn't overly excited about that. My background originally was as an intensive care nurse, and there's very poor leadership training in nursing, which is why I didn't really place a high value on it, which I think is quite sad. The interesting thing from my point of view was that I think that was what I got the most out of, was the discussions around leadership and culture. And one of the organisations that we looked at when we were doing our leadership studies was the United States Marine Corps. They take people from a huge, wide, diverse range of backgrounds, and they turn them into an elite fighting force. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing. And of course, leadership in the military is incredibly important because you're asking people to put themselves in harm's way. Now, that's something that you're never going to do in your restaurant. You can't. It's illegal to do that, and people wouldn't do it. They wouldn't put their life on their line to get that souffle out. That would just be crazy. So leadership is studied a lot more, taught a lot more in the military. And so after I did my MBA, I thought I would join the Army Reserve. And so I've been lucky to have 12 years of experience in the Army Reserve as an officer, being continually exposed to a wide range of leaders, wide range of leadership skills and styles, and being able to just observe great leaders within the Army. And I think that that's helped me in my personal development a lot. How does that help you? Well, the interesting thing is, in restaurants, there's no formal education process around leadership, which means that it tends to not get discussed a lot. And I think when you think restaurant leadership, there's two kinds of issues, I think, with restaurant leadership. The first one is that there's the image of the angry chef who's barking at people and, demanding a very, very high level of quality, which is not a great leadership style, I don't think. It tends to stifle creativity, and it tends to have people aren't endeared by working at that place. If it's a high-profile chef, they'll do it because they know that if they can put on their resume, I worked here for 18 months, and it's like, wow, that guy's really hard. If you can work there for 18 months, you can certainly work in my kitchen. And I've spoken to so many chefs who that was the reason that they worked for so-and-so or this guy or that person in that restaurant. It's just, I just wanted to put that badge of honor on my resume to be able to say that. Now, if you're the leader in that restaurant, that's a little bit of a sad indictment that people wanted to be able to put on their resume that they were able to put up with you for 18 months. That's not great. And it also means that it's very hard for these people to get a decent role model and to get a decent context about what restaurant leadership is. That's the topic that a lot of people think about when they think restaurant leadership. But I think that there's a much more common and a much bigger issue in restaurant leadership, and that is no leadership. This is the thing that I see so often. There is the boss whose power to compel people to do work is they're the boss and they pay the wages. And so the employees come in because they have a mortgage and because they need to pay that mortgage off and they haven't been able to find a better job. And they do what they do because the boss tells them what to do it so that they can get paid. Now, that is really sad. And you're missing out on so many of the amazing things that leadership can give you. So, what is leadership? Now, of course, my background is in leadership is predominantly military. And so I fall back on a military quote, and it's a quote from Dwight D Eisenhower, so President of the United States, responsible for the planning of D-Day, which was probably one of the most complex endeavours undertaken in the 20th century. A whole range of countries, a whole range of people, huge number of people from different services, Air Force, Navy, Army, they all talk differently, they all think differently, trying to do it in a very complicated environment, trying to conduct a task that is actively being opposed by a whole heap of other people who've got a whole heap of advantages. They're on the defense, so they've got a lot of advantages. You're on the offense. You've got to get all of these people to come together to perform one massively important task, which was to forge a bridgehead to set the conditions for the liberation of Europe. And so Dwight D Eisenhower thought that leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want them to do because they want to do it. It's very short. So getting someone else to do something that you want them to do because they want to do it. But it highlights a lot of the components of leadership. There's the vision. So it is what you want done. You're communicating that to them. And you are motivating them to do that because leadership a lot of it is around creating alignment. You want to get everyone rowing the boat in the same direction. And this is a really important concept for restaurants because Eisenhower was dealing with the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, and they all want to do their own little thing. They all look at the big problem and they pick out the bit that they're responsible for, and they think that that's the most important thing. So they frame the problem in a way that is very separate to the way that the other services do that. Now, does that sound familiar? Does the competition and the different viewpoints of Army, Navy and Air Force, does that sound like front of house and back of house? Both incredibly important to creating an amazing experience for your customers. It's quite hard to do it without a good front of house experience. It's quite hard to do without great food. You need both of those teams working together to create that one goal of creating a great experience. So creating the alignment through people. And I think that that's the thing that leadership can do. Now, why is it important? There's a couple of things. One of the things that I find really, really interesting is when you go in and you speak to a restaurant owner and they're like, I've got 5 minutes to talk. I'm just so busy and sometimes I just hate my job. Got so many problems. I don't have good staff here. I can't trust my staff. I'm continually having to show the chefs how to prepare the meals because they never get it right. And so you're in a restaurant where the owner of the restaurant is placing the blame on a lot of the individual people. I don't think that that's right. Leaders take responsibility for everything that goes on in the restaurant. And I think, so the leader's going to take responsibility for everything that goes wrong and will take the credit for nothing that goes right. So I think good leaders, and this is one of the things that I try to do, everything that goes right in our company, I say, you know what, that was good work. That was good code that you guys wrote. That was a really good customer engagement. That was a great marketing campaign that you designed. That is some great artwork. When it goes wrong, I didn't clearly articulate what it was that we wanted with that artwork. I haven't provided the training to be able to run a great Facebook campaign. We don't have great procedures around how to perform that role. So I take responsibility for everything that goes wrong and I take the credit for nothing. That's one of those little things that you can start And you can see that these people they're so unhappy in their job as the restaurant owner, they're not doing that. They're laying the blame on all of their staff, which is really hard because it means that you've got to go and hire the perfect staff. And how easy is that to do, right? And it places a lot of the things out of your control. Being a leader and a manager, to some respects, I like to have control. So I like to frame it, and all of the problems are framed in a way that I can have an influence in it. Because if it's something that I can't have an influence in, that's very stressful. So in these restaurants where there is poor leadership, morale is low. The way that person is unhappy, as the leader, that projects onto everyone else. And you've got front of house staff who are creating the vibe of the restaurant. It projects onto the customers. You can walk into some restaurants and you just feel that everyone is just here because they have to be. No one is excited to see you. No one is excited to share the cuisine of their home country with you and to introduce you to a little bit of Malaysian culture, or, this is the way that this Indian food was cooked by my parents in this part of India, or we're really excited about getting the best local beef that we can and creating just simply amazing meals with it. No one's got that story. No one's doing that. So from a marketing point of view, because that's part of the product, that's one of the 4 Ps, part of the product is that whole experience, and you're not doing a lot to create a great experience when the morale is really, really low. Employee churn. So I've spoken to some restaurants who say, we don't do a lot of training because they don't last very long. Okay, now that is an interesting statement. Have you got it the wrong way around? Is it people don't last very long because there's not a lot of training here? One of the things that makes it hugely stressful for an employee is when you want them to do their job, but you haven't told them explicitly what their job is or how to do it. You don't have it systematized. And they're like going, well, I'm just going to lay the table this way. Oh, don't do it that way. Well, how was I to know that you want it done this way? How was I to know that this was the way that the dish is meant to be prepared? Because you don't have recipe cards. The other thing I think that is really difficult, and it's a little bit more esoteric, but your ability to execute on a business plan. You need people that are engaged, who are listening, and who are committed to helping you execute on your business plan. And if you've got poor leadership, it's very, very difficult to create that. You can tell people to do that, and they're going to do it because you're giving them money to do the things that you tell them to do, but you're not going to get complete buy-in from them. That's very costly. And so just by thinking about your role as a leader, you can start to make some changes about the way that the restaurant functions. And one of the things that I find really interesting is that you'll have someone who's got an underperforming restaurant and they've had it for 10 years. And the only thing that I think that needs to change in that restaurant is the owner's mindset that they run an underperforming restaurant. Because when you start asking yourself the question about, how am I going to change this, and start implementing those changes, it will start changing. The restaurant that's underperforming, they only need a few more customers coming in to start making a difference. Now, a few more customers isn't going to make you instantly profitable, but it makes you less profitable, which means you're going to be having a few more resources there, whether those resources are time or money, to be able to start improving your situation. And then you can get that snowball effect, those little tiny investments who just make a much, much bigger difference when you start doing them over a 2-year period. So the first part of leadership is making sure that you've got a personal plan that aligns with a business plan, that aligns with a marketing plan. What is it that you want to do? And so there are people who, I would like to sell my restaurant for $500,000 when I turn 60, and that will be my retirement fund. Or I want to run a restaurant that allows me to take 2 family holidays a year. You need to have that. And far too many times, people have that beaten out of them by, another week where we weren't profitable. Another chef's just quit. Another waitress has just done something completely crazy, and we've got another really bad review on TripAdvisor. You get that beaten out of you, and you forget why it was that you opened that restaurant in the first place. People, you got to remember what it was, why you opened that restaurant, or what it is that you want to do with that restaurant. You got to think about that the first thing you wake up in the morning, and you got to be passionate about achieving that when you come in to work. Second thing, look at your business plan And you're not going to be able to do that if you can't see a way to be able to do that. I have lost all hope in making this profitable. That your whole dream is dead and everyone's going to know it. The stink of death will be on your restaurant, whether it closes or not. It's going to have the stink of death. So you've got to be passionate about your personal plan. You've then got to think about the business plan. And that's the hardest bit to do. I want to have 2 family holidays this year or, next year. Next year, I'm going to take 2 family holidays. So the first thing you do is to motivate yourself around that. Now, I think there's a whole heap of different things that we can talk about. So that's a whole separate podcast. But you've got to then make sure that your business plan and your marketing plan can make that viable. Because when you can see the road ahead, you're going to be coming into work and you're going to be passionate about what it is that you do. And that is the first thing that you need to do. You need to be passionate. You need to be excited about running a restaurant. It's awesome. Food is a critical part for everyone's survival, and it is fundamental to so many social interactions. And there are so many things that you can do. You can express your creativity. You can create, amazing bonds within communities, all of those sort of things. Pick 1, pick 2 or 3, get something that's meaningful to you and have that. And I think leaders are inspired people. You can't lead people if you don't know where you're going. That's the first thing, have something. The second thing I think you need to do, you need to be really clear about what the difference is between a manager and a leader. A manager is responsible for, and in a small restaurant, hey, you're doing both of those jobs. You've got to be clear about what those jobs are. The manager is responsible for today. He is responsible for making sure that the customers come in, the level of service that as a part of your business plan is provided to each and every one of your customers, and that your staff are positioned and able to perform the roles that they have. The kitchen is keeping waste to the agreed amount. The budget is being adhered to. There is going to be enough stock. You are not going to run out of food. The wait times are going to be adequate. People are seated properly. Food is delivered on time. If you're doing online ordering, food is delivered on time so that it's still hot and juicy and exciting. All of those sort of things need to be done. That's what a manager does. So the manager is concerned about today. The leader, concerned about tomorrow. This is where we are going to be. What do I need to do to be able to achieve the tomorrow that I want? And I think that there's a couple of tools that you can do that can help pave out that way. There's a few things, mission, purpose, BHAG. I'll include in the show notes some of the work by Vern Harnish, where he has a pyramid of how to run a business. And, right at the bottom of that pyramid is your BHAG. So our BHAG, and I don't want to get hung up on semantics, because at the bottom, it is pretty fluffy sometimes, and people argue about, well, I think a mission is this, and I think, you shouldn't have a BHAG. I think as long as you've got some star by which to navigate by, we're moving in this direction. That's the important thing. So in our company, we have a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. This is our aspirational goal, and that is to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. It's really, really hard to run a restaurant, and a lot of people undergo a lot of psychological stress because of the pressures and the issues in running a restaurant. So to make a meaningful difference in lives, we want to be able to help restaurant owners to be able to run better restaurants. That's our thing. That's the meaningful difference that we can make in people's lives. Taking a restaurant that is not performing well and providing them with the tools and the capabilities to be able to build profitability. I try and reference that at least once a week in our meetings. I think that was a really good example of us achieving our BHAG. We got some feedback from a customer and he said this. I think that this is really good. Or oh, look, something went wrong. Did we think about how we're going to make a meaningful difference in this person's life? Because I don't think that we're positioning ourselves to be able to do that. I think we're failing in our BHAG. We've got a mission that sits above that, and that's to solve restaurant problems. There are a lot of problems out there. How do you build an email database? How do you get more customers to come in? How do you run effective Facebook campaigns? How do you build an e-commerce platform for your business so that you can market yourselves online in a cost-effective way? There are a series of problems that we do, and we have a series of products that solve those problems. That's how we solve restaurant problems. There are some other people out there. I think of the vision that Adam Sobel's got from Cinnamon Snail. And he wants to introduce vegan food to non-vegans because he's really passionate about the fact that it's unsustainable for everyone to be eating meat. And so he is really, really interested in getting people to understand that you can have a vegan diet or you can eat less meat and still have really, really amazing tasting food. You know, that's what he's passionate about, creating these amazing taste experiences in a vegan context. And I think that that is really, really, really powerful to be able to do that. It helps attract people to his business. It helps in a marketing point of view. All of those sort of things I think are amazing. Nick Sorello at Nick's Pizza and Pub, I'm a big fan of the work that Nick does. I've been out to his restaurant. Huge place, really exciting. And I have his book on my desk because I refer to it every now and then because I think that this is one of the great textbooks in building a culture and building a concept for leadership in a restaurant. I just want to read out their purpose. The Nick's experience. Our dedicated family provides this community an unforgettable place to connect with your family and friends, to have fun and to feel at home. So their purpose is to provide the Nick's experience, and he's defined that experience. And it's local, you know, and that articulates with their marketing and it articulates with why people work there. And it's amazing, you know, the people who've been working there for so long. And I think that it's really important to highlight that because one of the biggest issues in the restaurant industry is that most people are on minimum wage. So in a startup, it's really easy to build a high-performing culture because it's like, you know what, we're going to build $1 billion company and, you know, everyone who started here has got 0.5% equity and we're all going to be super famous and super rich and it's all super exciting. Now, you don't have that. And the Army's the same thing. Look at the culture, look at the history, look at the mission to defend your nation. It's one of those things that you love and feel deeply passionate about and you're defending the nation. They are things that people literally rally around that cause. In a restaurant, everyone's getting minimum wage. So having that purpose, that can really help unify people, which decreases attrition and helps attract the right kind of people. And that's one of the big things. I always find it interesting when you go into a restaurant and you think, wow, I don't know if I'd be hiring that person if this was my restaurant. I think I'd be more firing them. And you need to be thinking about the people that you've got working with you because sometimes it's really, really difficult to do that. Everyone's replaceable. This brings us on to the culture. So one of the things that the leader is really responsible for is the culture of the organisation. And I like to define culture as, you know, it's the way that we do things around here. So I define my job as the leader of our organisation. I do everything that isn't done by somebody else, which means that I'm really keen on systematising things so that there's more things that other people can do. I'll sometimes bring the rubbish in. We don't have set car parking spaces. I like to think that it's a meritocracy here. Our star employees are the ones who do a really good job and who share our values. There's no old boys network here. We're very egalitarian, and it comes down to your ability to do your job and to share our values. They're the big things. Values. We have 4 values at Marketing for Restaurants: fun, learning, ownership, and communication. So it should be fun to work here. We have a massage person come in every fortnight and give everyone a 15-minute massage so that they're not feeling too stressed. We like to go out to restaurants a fair bit. We like to do fun activities. We've done all sorts of things. We've done wrap jumping, which is abseiling face first down a building, rock climbing, skydiving. We took some guys skydiving, all sorts of those, sort of fun things that are good to do. It should be fun to deal with us. We're very light on for contracts because our customers deal with us because they want to, not because we've signed a 2-year agreement with them. I think that that's really important. We want to be able to be seen as a fun company to deal with. Learning. One of the big things is, what are we learning? And so, we have a big focus on listening to podcasts, to, blogs that we read, so that we are continually, as a marketing organisation, we've got to be at the cutting edge. So we are continually trying to learn. Flip side of that is that externally, it means that we're always trying to teach our customers something. Now, I'm doing this podcast because one of our key values is learning, and this is an easy way that I can teach 10,000 restaurant owners about leadership or the secret of restaurant profitability or how to be more innovative in your restaurant. We can do all of those things with a podcast, and we're technology evangelists, and a podcast is a great way to be able to do that, and it spreads our resources really, really economically, because I know that some of our podcasts will get 10,000 downloads. Wow, that's amazing. Communication, open and honest communication internally. So we had something going on today and I said, wow, that's not really good ownership, is it? We communicate openly and honestly in front of everyone. That's the way that we'd like to be, and it's the way that we deal with our customers. Every Monday we send out an email that ranks all of our customers. And so some customers get an email to say you're in the bottom 50% of people visiting your website. People get angry about that. And it's like, well, we want to be open and honest about it. These are the things that you can do to improve your website. These are the things that you can get us to do. Let's sit down and work out about this problem. That's one of the things that differentiates us from all of our competitors, because most people will build a website and then that's it. They'll just collect their monthly fee and never, ever drive anyone to say, is your website working for you? Because we build websites. I mean, that's how we get most of our money. But that's not what we do. That's what we get paid to do. It's not what we do. You've got to think back. If we build a website, that's not going to make a meaningful difference in people's lives, and it's not going to solve any problems whatsoever. It needs to be selling, it needs to be doing the marketing, and it needs to be generating cash for our customers. So we're not solving any problems, we're not achieving our mission if the websites aren't working, and we communicate that clearly with our customers. And we're not making a meaningful difference in people's lives. If you've got a website that's crap, that we've built, I get a report every Monday. We call Monday here Data Monday, because we get all of the information from all of our customers all over the world, and we go through it and go, what's going on with this guy? Because I don't think we're making a meaningful difference in this guy's business. We need to talk to them and we need to make some changes so that we can get better results for them. And on top of that, we share that with our customers. You're in the bottom 50% of website visitors. And the good thing is it continues to push our average up for all of our customers. That's how culture and values works in our organisation. It will be different in yours. You're going to have a different mission. You're going to have a different vision. You're going to have a different culture, and you're going to have different values. What I will do, I won't go through all of Nick's values, but what I'll do is I'll put them up on the website so that have a look at the show notes, go through it. And I think, we've been getting good feedback around the transcripts as well. A lot of people are enjoying the transcripts. Not everyone likes listening. People have different learning styles. So some people like reading through it, and it's a big read. I had a look at our innovation one. I think there's 11,000 words there. Oh my God, I can't believe I talked for that long. But yes, have a look at the transcripts, because that will have Nick's values in there as well. As a leader, once you define what your values are, you're responsible for enforcing them. When someone doesn't share the values, you need to do something about it. And one of the less textbooky type definitions of values that I really, really like is that the values are the things that are going to really, really, really upset the boss. Now, people make mistakes. People make mistakes all the time. We see that. One thing that I have a big problem with, though, is that when someone does something that's against our values. So people can make a big mistake and you think, oh God, that's going to cost us a fortune to fix, or, that's really messy. I'm not really that fussed about that. I bring it back, what are the systems? How can we educate people better? How can we avoid it in the future? But I'm learning something from this mistake. That's all good. When someone doesn't share our values and clearly demonstrates that, then I get really, really miffed, because that's part of the contract of working here. These are our values. You've got to share them. If you don't share them, then we're going to have problems. And I'm very frank and open about that. We hire based on the perceived ability of people to share our values. We fire people for the exact same reason. When we do reviews, and this is one of my failings as a leader, it's been a while since we've done reviews. I want to share with people about how I perceive them to be sharing our values, because our review process is very two-way. What is it that we need to do to help them do their job and to share our values? When was the last time you did reviews with your staff? But hire for values and train for skills. Start getting a team around you that's going to share your values, be excited about your mission or vision. That's going to make your job as a leader to be a whole lot easier to be able to do. The next thing that I think that you should be doing is delegating, okay? This is one of the big issues, and I think, you should be thinking about reading the E-Myth. because I love that book, because what it talks about is the typical trade person who has a job and then creates a business. And this is so restaurants. So someone is a chef in a restaurant and then they decide to open a restaurant and they're going to be the chef. Now, they have expertise in the kitchen, which means that the kitchen's probably going to run pretty tight. Front of house is going to be left to its own desires. There's going to be no one really taking ownership of front of house. What you need to do is you need to forget your skills and step above it. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to work in the kitchen, because you probably love that and that's probably what you're really passionate about, but you can't be in there all the time. You need to be doing a whole heap of things. You need to be doing the leadership work. So you need to be thinking about where you're going to be in 3 years' time. What are food trends like? What technology is there in your restaurant that you can be talking about? What is there that you can do to be able to build a team better? What is your training like for the team? To do that, you need to delegate. So you need to take that step back away from the work that you're doing, because far too many people, they're just chefs. Now, I'm not saying just chefs as in just chefs, but they're completely ignoring their role as a leader. And this is what I was talking about at the start. The biggest problem is just no leadership whatsoever. I've employed someone for front of house and I expect them to do exactly what's needed for front of house. I don't really understand it. They can do and take care of all of that. Well, that's how you build a really lax culture in front of house. And that's how you start to build divides between kitchen and front of house. And that's how you start to build that culture where things aren't right for you. And I think this is in my first business. This was one of the really, really painful lessons that I learnt. I learnt it by doing the MBA and then coming back into my business and saying, holy cow, look at the culture here. Every business has a culture. So you can't just say, well, I've never done an MBA, so we're not going to have a culture. Your business has a culture. It is the way that we do things here. Now, does that mean that when someone comes in, I can continue playing on Facebook or playing Pokemon Go for, 2 minutes and then I'll go and see them? Because if you don't tell me not to do that, I'm probably just going to do that. Or I'm on a phone to one of my friends. It's an important phone call, so I'm just going to continue talking. Well, it's not. We're just talking about what we're going to do tonight, but it's more important than going and seeing the customer who just walked into our restaurant. Oh, hang on a sec, they just walked out again because no one went and saw them. Oh, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's your culture. It's okay. It's okay to ignore that customer. It's okay to let them stand there for 2 or 3 minutes, even though the place is virtually empty. It doesn't matter. Now, you've allowed that culture to flourish. There are other places where it's like, oh, hello, welcome. Is this your first time to our restaurant? We're so glad to have you. I want to share with you what's on the menu today, and I want to share what the chef cooked up today for us before we opened. It's really amazing. It's probably one of the best meals that I've ever had. Now, that's a cultural thing. Being greeted like that passion, we're really passionate when we greet people, and this is the process that we're going to go through when we do that. You're responsible for that. So when someone is on their phone for 3 minutes ignoring a customer, or someone's finished their meal and they've been waiting 15 minutes and the bill hasn't gotten out to them because, someone's just sitting on the computer fiddling around, answering emails or doing something less important, you've allowed that to happen in your restaurant. And as a leader, you've got to be the one who says, that's unacceptable. That's not the way that we do things in our restaurant. You need to be doing a better job. So I think that that's important. Procedures. Now, procedures are one of those things. And so I'd like to think that we're covering a lot of ground in this conversation. Because of the fact that leadership is so difficult, there's a lot of areas that you need to be working on. Now, and I know that we'll get a phone call or two about this. We'll get people hitting us up on Facebook thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe that I need to be a leader as well as all of the other things that I need to do. Have a listen to this and then just go for the low-hanging fruit. Procedures are low-hanging fruit. Procedures are the things that help you delegate. Can you please do this? How do I do that? Oh, God. Okay, rather than explain it, I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes and I'm going to write a procedure, and it's going to be barely adequate. I might take a quick photo of the way I want it to look like at the end, but it's going to be pretty bare. Then going to run that procedure, and we're going to use it for a week, and at the end of the week, we're going to sit down for 3 minutes, and I want to know the 3 things that are bad about this procedure, and then I'm going to change them. Bang. You are starting to build a better restaurant. And you're never going to have to worry about that job being, well, you probably will, but you're much less likely to have to worry about that job being done properly because there's now a procedure and people know that they need to follow the procedure. You're on the right track. And the time, if that's something that you takes up 20 minutes a week, you're now 20 minutes a week better off. And that's what I'm talking about, baby steps. So put those procedures in place, start to delegate. One of the things that I think is really important, because I think that we talked about innovation. One of the quotes that I think that's really interesting from Patton was, tell people what to do, not how to do it. So we always talk about the in order to. I want you to do this in order to blah. It's the in order to that's really important. It's less important how you get to that. So make sure that you're giving people a little bit of leeway. Now, you might have a single way of laying out of setting a table. That's fine. But give people input on that. Allow them to take ownership of those procedures. Allow them, particularly the people who are going to be doing that job, give them input in that. Then they start to take ownership of those procedures and they're much more invested in it. They're much more likely to carry them out. Now, the last thing that I think is really, really important is communicate. And when we talk about our values here, we actually say communicate, communicate, communicate. And that implies that one of the things that really, really stuck with me from my MBA is communicate, communicate, communicate. And when people start making jokes about what it is that you want to do because you've told them so many times, then you know that you're nearly there. Okay? So communicate, communicate, communicate. Open and honest communication is one of our 4 key values. And two-way communication. Just don't tell them, provide them with the reinforcement where it's required, provide them with the retraining required when it's necessary, but seek their communication as well. So two-way communication. And I find that this is one of the things, and we talked about it before, that it's stressful for an employee when you tell them to do their job, but they don't know what their job is. So, create the procedures. That really helps. People can't read minds. And I was talking to a restaurant owner a few months ago, and they were talking about the problems that an employee was having. And it was just clear that they had a fairly strong team in the kitchen who'd been together for years. And they had someone, they were finding it difficult to find a replacement for someone. So they'd had multiple people in that position. And what it was that they had really tightly defined procedures. The problem was that they were defined in everyone's head. Everyone knew how a meal should be done because they'd been doing it for 3 years together. So they didn't have anything written down. The problem was that they expected everyone just to magically work out how everything was to be done. And it was a fairly aggressive kitchen, so there was a lot of shouting when someone got it wrong, and people were leaving because they had no idea what they were doing, what they were meant to be, or how they were meant to be doing it. And every time they got it wrong, they were getting yelled at. So obviously, no one would enjoy working in that kind of situation. So they are the kind of things that I think are important to help you be a leader. Look for a mentor. Go to a business networking group. I think that can really help as well. Start to think about the concept of leadership. Start to read a bit about it. So 2 books, definitely Nick Cirillo's A Slice of the Pie. I think that's an amazing book to read. Danny Meyer's Setting the Table. I think that there's lots of gems in there as well. Have a read of both of those books. Start looking at leaders. Now, and they don't need to be in the restaurant industry. Leadership is leadership. So you can take, military leadership, you can take leadership from a bank, you can take it from any sort of organisation. It might be your local church. There's 101 places where you can find people to be your mentor and speak to them and say, look, I'm really trying to work on the leadership in my restaurant. Do you mind if I buy you a coffee, or can we catch up every couple of months? I think one of the big opportunities is for restaurant owners to get together and to discuss the concept of restaurant ownership. How is it that you do it? Restaurants have a lot of the similar problems, and yet there's very little sharing of information, which I always think is completely crazy. So I hope is the brain dump of restaurant leadership. So have a personal plan, be passionate about that. Make sure that you've got a business plan and a marketing plan so that you think that you can actually achieve your personal plan. And that's what is going to make you excited to go to work. That's the first thing to do. You can't fake that. You've got to be passionate about it. Your passion is not going to rub off on anyone if it's not there. Have a mission, have a vision, have something that is going to attract people and get them passionate about it. Define your values and be really clear on them. hire for values and train for skills. It's going to mean that you've got a really good team that are much more closely aligned naturally, straight out of the box, rather than getting people who don't share those values and then you've got to train them for those values. That's very difficult. Have a look at your procedures. That's one of those things that's going to provide you with time to be able to work more on the leadership role. Delegate. You've got to delegate. You delegate as much as you can. Communicate. I think you can't communicate too much. And then find a mentor or two. Study leadership. Have a read of the books that we've talked about. Hopefully you've got something out of it. I think this is a conversation that needed to be had. I think there'll be a lot of people who are going to be going, wow, there is a whole huge chunk of our restaurant business that we just haven't been addressing, which may appear daunting at the start, but I think it's start taking the journey. You're not going to say, right, we're going to have a leadership day tomorrow and then the day after you're going to be all leadershiped up. This could be a 2-year journey. For me, I've been running businesses for 19 years now, and I think I'm probably halfway there. There is a lot to be done in this space, but the better you get, the better you get. And those rewards come back to you in that investment in time and capability. So that's it. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Please give us a review on iTunes. I read all of them. Hit us up on Facebook. Let us know what you would like to hear about next in the podcast. And I know someone asked for how to deal with TripAdvisor reviews, and I think that is a really important topic. And so we've got the team working on doing some research. We've got our standard ways of doing it. I want to make sure that we've got the best ideas out there for dealing or not with TripAdvisor. So that's it. I hope you have a busy week. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.